Hi everybody, this is Mary Satoli from the Follow Your Bliss Foundation, for those of you who haven't seen my videos before. And for those of you who have, you'll know that I've been kind of distant on YouTube for the last few months. There's been a lot going on, and I have opted to go public with a lot of information that I've had bits and pieces too, but until recent developments over the last month or two, I haven't been really forthcoming with a lot about what I do know, maybe here and there, pieces of it. But this is my phone ringing, which I should have probably not had turned on, but usually it doesn't ring this late. So anyway, I want to start with a process, and y'all might want to get a bowl of popcorn for this, because I got a lot to talk about tonight. I've been sort of here contemplating a lot of this by myself, and because I feel like so many of us have been tortured already with benzo withdrawal and hell, that not much surprises us. So maybe for those of you who are still going through a rough time with it, this might be a little bit harder to hear with all the things that are happening in the world right now. I realize a lot of it is overwhelming, to say the least. But it's also stuff that I really feel needs to come out. We're like long overdue for all the information that has been suppressed and is still fighting to stay alive, even though there's people that are trying to blow whistles on certain things. They're trying to discredit them as fast as information comes out, let's just say. So I want to start with my morning, which is what triggered a lot of these events happening. And you probably wonder what this has got to do with benzos, but I'm going to get to it. You know me, I have a tendency to side rail with stories and then come back to my point, so you'll have to bear with me and follow me on this one. This morning I received a post on my Facebook page from the Puerto Rican center in Arizona that is actively involved with the people who have suffered in unimaginable ways down in West Puerto Rico, that are up in the hills. And I'm sure maybe some of you have seen these posts on my Facebook page, but they're also dropping supplies, supposedly, that these retired volunteer vets that are down there trying to help these people are saying they're not getting the supplies, and they're claiming that they're being signed off, that they're signing off on the supplies, but they're not seeing them. And so I don't know who's signing off on them, but somebody is. Anyway, they're only getting about 6 bottles of water each, and they're up in the hills with a snack pack. That's all they're getting to them on a daily basis. These people are starving. They're sick, some of them, and they're not getting medications, maybe not their benzos, for God's sakes. I don't know, but if they are, they're going through, as you know, cold turkey withdrawal, which is hell that none of us should be experiencing. But so what has this got to do with benzos? This morning, the other part of the equation was that for many of you who don't know Puerto Rican and American history very much, which I didn't know either until I listened to Congresswoman Velázquez, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, I'm probably butchering it, but she was on Facebook this morning as well with a committee she was talking to about what's happening to these people. And as you know, Trump is not planning on bailing these people out. They're American citizens. She talks about how the Americans invaded Puerto Rico back in I believe it's 98. I don't know if I have all my dates right, but it's around this time period. So we have a responsibility to these people. It's like we've done the same thing we did to the American Indians when we came over here and, you know, raped and pillaged their villages and then put them on reservations and justify. The other day I went down toward the Gila Indian Reservation, where I haven't been in years, and it's on reservation land where they are literally, I took a wrong turn and I ended up on a street that's all heavily guarded, gates, security cameras, miles of chemical plants that weren't there 10 years ago. And the person's house that I went to, I inquired about, and they said that they were actually recycling antifreeze and selling it. And they're getting away with a lot of this stuff because they're on the reservation and they can pretty much do what they want. So when I saw this thing with the Congresswoman, she went on to say that in 1917, these people in Puerto Rico were forced into American citizenship so that they could go fight in World War I. And we're not going to bail them out, really? This is only the beginning, folks. It's not just what's happening with the benzos and with what's happening with the weather patterns and the earthquakes and the fires. A friend of mine who is watching some of this stuff closely also mentioned the fires in California. A lot of marijuana fields were wiped out, miles and miles and miles, and they threaten the pharmaceutical companies, folks. They're threatening the pharmaceutical companies' business. And they still don't know what or how these fires started. Use your imagination here, folks, because we're not getting the truth from anybody in mainstream media. You've got to get it from other sources. So, after listening to the Congresswoman speak up on behalf of the Puerto Rican people, I had also done a video to raise money for the Puerto Rican Center. Everything's been sort of haywire because everybody's so busy trying to work and put a roof over their head that they don't have time to respond to a lot of this information that's coming in, myself included, because not only have I been going through a series of the last 3 months of horrific withdrawal symptoms physically, although I'm doing a little bit better this week than I have for a while, but I got hit with the fact that my financer for my nonprofit and for all the work that I've been doing musically is very sick and is probably dying. There's a half a dozen people that he pays to drive him everywhere because he's in a wheelchair and he's like 75 years old. And the last reported email that I had from him said that they were leaving him for hours in his wheelchair while they went off and ran errands on his time clock. They're paying these people, he's paying these people $2,000 a month to do nothing but drive him around. He was getting ready to fire the nurse right before I got the last email from him saying he was really sick. The check that he had sent me was supposedly in the mail, but one of his employees supposedly mailed it. I never got it. The family hasn't been informed that he's sick, although not a big surprise because they were fighting over land and money when Joe had informed me about this sooner. So I have no idea where the money's coming from at the moment either. So if you can support my channel and my nonprofit with a small donation to cover our website and rent and all the programs that I bring to you free of charge, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you could pay it forward with this video and send it to as many people as you know, because the rest of this information that I'm about to share with you, which is extensive, needs to get out to the public. They need to understand and be able to connect the dots of everything that is happening with our healthcare system, that I have proof. And I'm not afraid to go public with it anymore because it took me a long time of being down from this medication and research to figure out everything that has happened for a long time for me. And I think for many people it's happening to, but they feel pretty helpless to do anything about it because they haven't figured out all the stuff that I have quite yet. Starting with the Medicare Part D program. And I want to back up just a little bit to tell you the other piece of information that came across my text messaging this morning. A lot of you know who Roy Katz and Dr. Armstrong are. They run a taper program that I was able to successfully come off the benzos because of these two. There aren't two better people on the planet, and they're being totally... they already shut Roy's pharmacy down last year about this time, and they're discrediting him. just like they're discrediting Dr. Armstrong now. This morning I got the news that he was brought before the Texas Board of Medicine and told that he can no longer prescribe medications to taper these people off their drugs. So now where are they going to get it from? I mean, no one that I know, not a single doctor I know, would have ever prescribed the dose that they had gotten me up to in order to taper me off this drug. I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for Roy Katz and Dr. Armstrong. I wouldn't be sitting here to share any of this information with you if it weren't for these two people. And for those of you who believe that he's the bad guy, I've got some news to tell you, okay? Starting with the progesterone. If any of you know the real truth behind why his pharmacy was shut down, is that they have been after compounding pharmacists since probably about 2000. I followed this because I had a nonprofit for women's health where we had medical staff on our board of directors that actually were following 30 women who were put on bioidentical hormones to see how they would respond. If they were given resources to be able to afford these, were women who couldn't normally afford these things, that were given support to be able to try something alternative other than what Big Pharma is cramming down our throats. There were many women in the program that were on benzodiazepines. They did not respond as well to the progesterone that Roy and Dr. Armstrong were using to get me and many other people off these drugs. Progesterone works on the GABAergic system, somewhat similar to, so it helps with calming, sleeping functions like the benzodiazepines. And they've got everybody so terrified of progesterone, much more so than even the benzos, which is ludicrous, because there was a study done, I think it was in 2005, if anybody has more accurate information. I don't know about the exact year, but it was somewhere around that time. And they started a big scare about progesterone, but the only drugs that were actually studied in the Women's Health Initiative were synthetic estrogens and Provera, which is a synthetic progesterone. It is proved to cause cancer and heart attacks and strokes, and they had to shut the study down. So they blanketed progesterone. Bioidentical hormones are not the same. They cannot patent these hormones because they can't change the chemical structure so that they can legally charge big money for this stuff. And so the only people with enough money to run the studies on bioidentical hormones is Big Pharma, which they don't want to do because they can't sell that. They can't patent it. And so, yeah, they want to scare people out of taking this stuff. And I'm one of the few people that probably knew enough about this to not be afraid of taking the progesterone as a tool to get off these drugs, because as most of you know, I had a pretty horrific withdrawal from a pretty high dose, and am pretty functional considering that I had the amount of stuff and challenges and stress that I've had in my life over the last almost 2 decades since I was put on the drug. So at the time, it didn't make sense to me, all the things that were happening from around 2000 to fast forward 2017 in my journey, because I had been put on the benzos just prior to that, 1999. And how I managed to do a lot of this stuff while I was on these benzos, probably because I hadn't reached full tolerance, even though they were increasing the drug. And the doctors and nurses prescribing this stuff are just as brainwashed as we are to ask your doctor. And honestly, if I get the financial support reestablished for my nonprofit, I intend to make "Don't Ask Your Doctor" t-shirts. Seriously, folks, because this is like really fucked up. All of it. So, what has this got to do with drugs? It's all intertwined. They own our healthcare system. They own our healthcare system. And they've been slowly taking away our rights for about 3 decades now. Since mental health drugs were really starting to pick up speed and getting a lot of commercial airtime in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. interestingly enough, around the same time that they created Medicare Part D for a lot of people on disability. Now, the research, and any of you who've read my blogs will know that, and I think I have a video dedicated to this whole subject about the number of people in our disability system that have been on these drugs like me and had injuries or illness as a result of the drug, but they're covering that up. Our disability rate for mental health related disorders has gone up by 30% in the last 2 decades. That's a big chunk of people on disability for mental health related issues. Mental health. Sorry, but a lot's been coming to the surface here that I'm trying to share with you guys, and I'm hoping you can follow this, because it was hard for me to put together and connect the dots. But if I hadn't gone through it myself, I would have never figured this out, and I can figure out why it was happening to me. And I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I don't give a shit anymore. I'm not staying quiet about the information I have. So in 2008, 9, somewhere around there, prior to that, the disability system, because I've been on the disability rolls now since 2002, I believe, after I fractured my skull, the blackout from the medications, which I didn't know at the time was causing the infections and everything else. I had been getting my bioidentical hormones reimbursed by disability up until, in the wee hours of the night, Congress and senators gathered at a time that no one was paying attention and passed the Medicare Part D bill, which allowed insurance companies to number drugs, particularly bioidentical hormones, that they don't want to cover. So it automatically, when you apply for a reimbursement, it kicks it out of the system and denies the claim, and you no longer can get it covered. I appealed my case at the time in 2009 to an ALJ judge, which is an administrative law judge. They're kind of a mediator type judge. They're not like our Supreme Court judges or court judges that you take to in the public. They're more objective, private hired judges that have been removed from the system, which I'm going to get to in a minute. I won the appeal at the ALJ level. United Healthcare, which owns a zillion other small companies, they're an umbrella for a company that I didn't even know was insured by United Healthcare. I didn't even know that was who the big arm of this whole insurance company belonged to. I won the appeal, and United Healthcare was forced to pay for my bioidentical hormones until they could win another appeal. This is how our judicial system works these days, folks. We're given the impression that we have rights, but we don't really. And it's slowly being taken away, and they're going to keep taking it away until we do something about it. It's up to you and I to do something about it, because we've been impacted by this stuff. And you're probably saying, well, what can I do? Look what I've done. Benzo brained and all. You get involved, you do something you feel passionate about. Just don't sit on your couch and bitch. And I know you guys are really damaged, but so was I. And I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent this month. So suck it up, or we're going to have big problems. I'm serious. Okay, I got that on my system. Sorry, I'm not blaming this on you guys. I'm just trying to wake you up. You need to wake up and pay attention to what's really going on. They've got everybody on this huge rat wheel distracting them with all this technology and all these gadgets, and they got to work 80 hours a week, so they don't have time like us to do the research for ourselves. But we're damaged. We're trying to figure out answers to our own problems. We're home. And that's how I came across all this stuff, folks. I was trying to help myself get out of a really bad place, and now I'm trying to help you guys, because I'm trying to approach as many billionaire people to fund my project, my nonprofit, as I can, to help build a center for the many people that are going to be forced to come off this drug cold turkey if what happens is what I think is about to happen. And I think you guys are probably the few people that probably won't think I'm entirely crazy, but like I said, I don't care. So after I won the appeal, United Healthcare appealed, and they won. So they quit covering my hormones again. I was told I could go to Maximus, which is the supposedly Medicare Part D legal representative for all of us people on disability. I had a stack of documentation this thick that went to the ALJ judge who overturned the ruling, said it was unconstitutional to deny me something that I'd already been taking that was effective. So the Maximus Part D representative for our illustrious insurance healthcare system, and I put that in quotation marks, decided to just completely flat deny my appeal without even looking at the documents. I sent it in. It took 3 days for them to come back with the response. Now you do the math. Do you really think that they could have gone over that much documentation and even looked at it in 3 days and had a turnaround? They just automatically deny you the appeal so that there's an illusion that we have an appeal process. And they're slowly doing this to everybody. And I encourage you to share this video, and not with friends, because I know this is happening to millions of people besides myself. They just haven't figured all of it out because they haven't been directly involved with the whole thing the way I have with my nonprofits and with Roy and Dr. Armstrong's progesterone program. Roy and Dr. Katz, or Dr. Armstrong and Roy Katz, are two of the few medical professionals that I believe really has a grip on what's going on with this stuff and is actually doing something to help people like you and I. They were really discredited through this whole thing. As I said, with my nonprofit, most of the women who were put on bioidentical hormones that were on benzos did not fare well. Not at all. And I know tons of women who have never taken them that never had a problem. But as you know, coming off these benzos makes you sensitive to everything, including B vitamins will do that if you try to start taking it. Fortunately, I started the progesterone before I was in a tolerance phase of the withdrawal, so I was not negatively impacted by it, and I believe that is why. It took me a long time to kind of figure out what they were doing and how they were discrediting him. But when I found out this morning that Dr. Armstrong had been given his taper prescription rights taken away, there's hundreds of people in his program that aren't going to be able to get their meds, and they're going to suffer immensely. As you know, those of you who've been taken off this drug cold turkey knows what it does, and even the taper is nasty. It's horrible, brutal experience for all of us that are damaged by these drugs. So fast forward, how I finally kind of put a lot of the pieces together was about a month ago, about the time Joe, my investor, got sick. I had been denied another prescription lidoderm patches. They're a totally benign pain patch that I use for neck-related pain. I was prescribed these patches. They're non-addictive. They are like what you get at the dentist, Novocaine. Basically, that's what it is. I was prescribed these patches back in 2003 before the Medicare Part D BS started. And I was given it by a doctor who then had more control over what we were prescribed and our health care than they certainly do now, as many of you know. I think a lot of them are being bullied into prescribing this stuff, or they lose their license and they're not talking. That's what I think, based on what I know. Can't prove that part of it yet, but I'm working on it. So I was cut off of my lidocaine patches. I had a few left, so I've been salvaging what I can because I don't have the money to buy them for my pain, which is excruciating right now, even though I don't show it. So I appealed again. I'm in another appeals process with Medicare Part D. It's a lot of fun, certainly a lot of fun. And what I found out this time around is there is no more ALJ judge involved in the appeal process. You go right to Maximus. And I submitted that a couple days ago, and I'll wager anybody on this that thinks that I'm going to get coverage for that. And I'm willing to bet because I need my rent money right now. So any of you who think that they're going to cover it, bets are on. So when I figured this out and the news came out about Dr. Armstrong, I decided, I've got several friends of mine that are doing a letter writing campaign to billionaires everywhere, that I could find lists and whatever. This is why I haven't been on YouTube. I've been appealing with another video that I did about a woman who was damaged from a cold turkey withdrawal, whose physical symptoms are much more visible than mine, although you all know that a lot of us look perfectly healthy, and we're labeled nut jobs to discredit us because no one understands this and the way we do, and I don't know why we're the chosen ones, but so be it. And I'm going to fight till the end, regardless of what happens to me. I've already been homeless once because of this drug, and I'm not going to hesitate to do what I can to save my place, because it took me a lot of begging from my friends and a lot of really lonely nights in this guest house to recover this far, and to put a lot of these pieces together so that I could put this nonprofit together, because it's what it's all about. It's about helping each other, because we're sort of like being pit against each other right now. It's kind of like everybody's trying to survive and scrape their way to the top of the ladder, and it's every man for themselves, so they don't have time to help you or give you financial support or nurturing the way that you need it when you're coming off these drugs, because they're too busy trying to survive themselves. Sorry, I'm rattling. I want to make sure I haven't... Oh, there's a few things that I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget in this whole process of my spewing. I have documentation that I've kept over the last several years while I've been on the progesterone, showing that my blood tests are in a reasonably good range, even though I'm taking a super high dose. So for those of you who blamed this on Roy Katz and were responsible for reporting him to the Minnesota Pharmacy Board, you're stabbing the good guy in the back. These are the people trying to help us, and I know you're freaked out because you're coming off these drugs and you don't know who to believe. The information, there's conspiracy theorists all over the internet, the mainstream media is jumbling everything, so you don't know who to believe. Believe somebody who's been through it, for God's sakes. Who are you going to believe, me or the people that are trying to profit trillions of dollars from this and have everything to lose? Well, I got nothing else to lose because they've taken everything the fuck away from me, including my career, my soon-to-be home, my health, my integrity. And I'm mad, and you all should be mad too, because these people they'll stop at nothing. They don't care who they destroy. You included, so you best get off your ass and do something about it. Anyway, I've put out a mass emailing for those of you who get my newsletter. I've put out already an email to my personal email address, so any of you who get that want to share or help in some way, you know where all my links are, you know where my website is, you know how to contact me. Please forward this. If you have anybody that's in the media, if you have anybody that is anywhere in a position that they can get this news out there to the public, then please do it, because the story needs to be told loud and from the top of every mountaintop. Because honestly, I have people that are in the New Thought community, spiritual stuff, and it's easy to be spiritual and grounded, and when you've got money. A lot of these people preaching these things online, 3 houses and 10 cars. It's easy to be spiritual. Let them try this. Let them try this and try to get through it and tell me that I need to meditate and do yoga and do all these things that I do to keep myself grounded because of this drug, to survive in this world. Without your nervous system, I just realized I knocked my camera out. Sorry. I get carried away. I'm passionate about this. What can I say? trying to keep my sense of humor about me. Without your nervous system in this world, you are screwed, as all of you know, and I believe that this is what they're doing to the people in Puerto Rico first, because they're worthless. If you see the same friend of mine who reported the thing about the marijuana stuff in California has also seen where the number of times Trump has gone to Texas and Florida versus the number of times he's been in Puerto Rico to help support these people. Puerto Rico has 0 electoral votes. As we all know, Florida and Texas have a lot of electoral votes, and a lot of times are the swing states that make the election or break it. He has a lot to gain by getting support in Texas and Florida and absolutely nothing in Puerto Rico. So you guys do the math. You guys connect the dots. And for those of you who are getting prescription medications that are doing you good ripped away from you, so I meant to add the really good part here that you guys will like, because this one is what really floored me, and really what set off the red flags ablazing was that when I got the denial for the appeal on the Lidoderm patches, after using them for over a decade effectively on my pain, I am now told in the appeal process, when I was turned down by Cigna, the Medicare Part D insurance company that is under United Healthcare, actually denied me before I found out I had to go directly to Maximus without the ALJ. They told me that I had to take Lyrica or Cymbalta for my pain. That was the only thing they would cover. They're both as damaging to your nervous system, as I suspect for many people, because there's support groups on Facebook, people having struggles getting off these drugs as well. They suppress the central nervous system like benzos. They want everybody taking those drugs, not something that's safe and effective like a Lidoderm patch. And when I found that out, I went, you gotta be kidding me, right? Seriously. Some evil shit, folks. Some evil shit. And if I'm right, we will have more than 90 million people on benzos, including every kid in the world, and they will not have a childhood, and they will not have a future, because they will be owned by the drug companies, like we already are, many of us. And you're on the disability system. They don't give you enough to live, at least most of us. There's a few people that get enough. So you're probably not invested in trying too much harder because you got your rent covered, but I don't. So your back's against the wall, and here's the other juicy piece of information. For those of you who haven't been keeping up on this piece of news, Stephen Paddock, the shooter in Vegas, was on diazepam. Ooh, big surprise, huh? The shootings are going to get worse. The division's going to get worse. And if we don't take our power back, which I don't know if it's possible at this point because they own pretty much everything. And you can't fight them unless I have a billionaire or somebody behind me to tell the story. So you figure it out. And if you think I'm crazy, great. You go try to do what I've accomplished with my nonprofit and the people that I'm helping, and still live to talk about it and come out the other end. Still not fully healed, but I'm better than a lot of people who've been damaged by these drugs. So I am probably about as overwhelmed as I can be for one day with news, and I'm sure that for those of you who are still very, very paranoid and fearful and are having all this crazy stuff from coming off the drugs, I know this is probably not news that you want to hear right now, and part of the reason I haven't been on YouTube was because I was hoping to come back with some better news than I have right now, because I know how difficult that listening to this stuff is for those of you who's not as strong as some of us. So please share this video with as many people as you can. If you know people in the media, have them contact me. If you know people that are going through the same types of things, have them get a hold of me with their stories so that I can take this to the press. And pray for me that I get somebody with a whole lot of money to back my nonprofit, or I'm going to have to close the doors. And I may be on the streets in a few weeks if I don't get some help, because I can't work. And most of the work out there is not legitimate anymore, in case you haven't been online and looking. So, I hope all you guys are hanging in there. I'm doing the best I can to fight for us. You know, I'm doing everything I can, and I need your support and I need your help. So I'm begging you to share this. At least if you can't donate, I'm asking that you share with as many people as you can, because the public has a right to know about these drugs and what's going on. Okay, I love you guys. Stay the course. Bye.